Welcome back. We are going to be talking now about tourism in Egypt and how it ranked second in the destinations for the Middle East and North Africa. And we're joined in the studio today by Mr. Ihab Wagdy, a tour guide. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us.
You're more than welcome.
Can you first tell us a bit about the significance of having a report like this saying that Egypt ranked second in the Middle East and North African region?
Right, actually the reports, they are talking about choosing Egypt,
Yes.
Jordan,
Yes.
and United Arab Emirates as a global destination for tourism in the western part of Asia and the northern part of Africa, or the Middle East and North Africa. Mainly these three countries. If you find that United Arab Emirates, for example, they have the modern structures, the market, plus that they are a destination as a transit for those who are traveling from east to west. Then when you come to Egypt, we're talking about different kind of tourism. Actually, I rephrase it, all kinds of tourism almost. Of course, there is Jordan also. They have a culture tourism like what we do. They have also the sea like in Egypt, except that it's not that big over there. Our weather is controlling this. Also the movement we did in Egypt, starting starting with the president, ending with everybody works in tourism. We have taken several steps in improving tourism to Egypt, if you wish to say. And I'm talking about all kinds of tourism, whether culture tourism or the resort tourism. I mean, all kinds.
Yes. The Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities is going to take part in the Arab Travel and Tourism Forum in Dubai. How is this important, and is there some sort of coordination between these countries?
Absolutely. Actually, they already started. It was today is the 12th, I believe, and I think it's about time today.
Yes,
it's the end of the Arab travel market, which is going on in Dubai.
Yes.
We have participated in this, and by the way, we were in between 115 different countries were participating in the Arab travel market. The Egyptian section there did a very successful movement of what we did. Actually, 600, I guess 600 square meters, that's what we have taken. There are several travel agencies were representing Egypt. We started to encourage the Arab tourists to come to Egypt, and this is a very major point. It is a major point to encourage the our brothers and sisters, I mean the Arabs, to visit Egypt, using or depending on what we have here that the others they don't have. We have to put in mind that the Arabs, when they travel, they like to travel to the countries that they can speak the language. This is number one. They have a common things between them. I mean, when they come to Egypt, they don't have to look for halal, for example, or halal food to eat. Wherever he is going, he will be able to communicate. He will be able to eat. He will be able to drink. The choice is his. We have different destinations for them, and we have encouraged them, as a matter of fact, to come. We just started a campaign, Your Holiday is in Egypt, as a matter of fact, and that's mainly for the Arab tourists whom we actually need, and they need us too. We need to replace the Russian, the Ukrainians, whom
Yes.
they used to
Yes.
come to the Red Sea destinations, I mean Hurghada,
Yes.
Sharm el-Sheikh,
Yes.
and the other countries. These destinations now are open for the Arab tourists to come when you have the national carrier, air carrier, the Egyptian national air carrier.
Yes.
They have different points. They have opened new destinations. When we have the charter flights coming to these destinations, coming to the Mediterranean or the northern part, encouraging the Arabs to come to Egypt. And we can talk about the positives of the Arab tourism.
But
if
I've
you wish
also
to.
noticed, other than the Mediterranean area or the sea in the Mediterranean or Red Sea area, that Arab tourists have recently, in the recent years, been flocking towards the north coast as well. Now it's a destination for
That's
Arab
true.
tourists. Is this intentional? Is the Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities trying to attract them to the north coast by providing, you know, the certain accommodation for them, you know, lifestyle and all of that?
Yes, and this has been going on for some time, putting in mind that there are some Arab investors, they are investing their money in Al-Alamein,
Yes.
in Sidi Abdurrahman, the northern coast, and they know the way of thinking for the Arab tourists. What do they need? What do they have? Therefore, we find that this is a very important point. When you have Arabs investing their money, so they in these projects, so they are expecting an income, and they are selling this for the other Arab tourists coming to that area, which means chances for the Egyptians to work. And also, we have to put in mind that the Arab tourists, when they travel, they don't travel on their own. They are families.
Yes.
And when they, plus that they spend longer time. If you know the average for the Arab tourists, the average time spending in Egypt is about 2 weeks. Then when you find that they travel with their families, the last studies were saying that they don't spend per person per day not less than 150 US dollars.
Yes.
And if you compare this to the European tourists who spend more than $30, so let's say that each one equals 3 of that. So it is a very important market. We need to push it, and there are a lot of things we can do to encourage this kind of tourism, especially when we know that they like the nightlife.
Yes. COVID-19 affected the entire world, and specifically tourism sector. Any country that depended on
Exactly.
tourism were hit hard.
Exactly.
It's been about 2 years now. The tourism sector must have been hit very hard.
That's true.
How is the tourism sector handling it? And now there's another crisis with the Ukraine-Russian war, where we depended, as you were saying, on Ukrainian and Russian tourists. How are we going to recover from this?
Great. The positive thing, and because I always like to mention those who make efforts. If you look to the Minister of Tourism, for example, and Antiquities, or the Ministry of Tourism, and what they have done, we started to be affected by COVID-19 starting from 2020.
Yes.
After some time, Egypt was one of the first countries in the world to open Egypt as a destination for tourists, depending on 25%.
Yes.
Then we started to increase the percentage afterwards. So it wasn't stopping completely. It wasn't starting again from 0 point, because that means that you need a lot of to do a lot of things to train the people who quit working, but they were still going on. They were still working. Of course, what helped also in encouraging the vaccines, when you find that the percentage is increasing in Egypt for those who are already vaccinated, in particular those who are dealing with the tourists directly.
Yes.
We have also the social distance. I mean, we have put in some rules that for COVID-19, right, at that time and until now, we are still taking precautions, putting in mind that people have been in their homes for 2 years.
Yes, but it's not like they want to stay home. They
They
are
like,
obliged
I'm
to.
saying they have stayed in their homes for
Yes.
2 years. I can say they're fed up. They like to travel. Unfortunately, what happened now, I mean, the war, for example,
Yes.
is affecting that the global inflation is affecting tourism, definitely,
Yes.
of course. But what I liked about what we did here in Egypt, that we didn't cry on the spoiled milk, but we started to take actions to moving forward, looking for increasing the number of tourists to Egypt, which means actually a better income, national income.
Yes.
To the country, chances for people, for the youth to work, or those who are working in tourism. And tourism, it's a major industry. If you can just imagine, now if I want to invest some money, like building a factory, I will wait for some time until I gain my money back, then
Yes.
the profit. While if I started to invest the same amount in tourism, a hotel or whatever, on the next day,
Yes.
people are staying. On the next day, I've asked people to work for me in this hotel or in this industry in general, whatever are several, because tourism, it's not only tourism, there are several other jobs and industries, they are connected to this
Yes.
job. So when you have this, and the positive thing about tourism, that this income goes to the people's hand directly,
Yes.
whether the waiters, the taxi drivers, the tour guides, the ones who are working at the airport. So it helps the economy. And at the years we were receiving a high number of tourists, our national income was increasing a lot. But I'm looking positively for the future.
Yes. How are the efforts by the ministry when it comes to promoting tourism? We've seen in the last 2 years, you know, the Mummies Parade, where they opened the Namek Museum, and the project of the Grand Egyptian Museum as well. That's a very anticipated
Great question.
opening.
Actually, we have done several things. If you're talking about opening the museums.
Yes.
And actually, less than an hour ago, I was talking to Dr. Ali Umar, and he's the one who's responsible about the new museums, as a matter of fact. And we were talking about the new museums Egypt opened. If you imagine, for example, the Suhad Museum, Sharm el-Sheikh Museum, Kafr el-Sheikh Museum, then we coming soon, for example, the Greek-Roman Museum, and this is a great museum. The Civilization Museum, which we opened, and the parade we made for the mummies, right? The celebration we had in Luxor, the Opet celebration, or the Opet parade from Karnak to Luxor, all of this, the whole world is waiting for the opening of the gem. Right, all of this is putting the lights on Egypt as a destination to spend their holiday. The Ministry of Tourism started, for example, this campaign, Sunny Christmas, which is inshallah coming soon. They started in March, and it was for 8 weeks, about again a sunny destination. We were trying to replace those whom I said as a market we lost them. I mean the majority, not all of them, but the majority of the Ukrainians and the Russians, whom now we are open markets again for the western part of Europe. I'm talking about Germany, France, England, Italy, Spain, plus the Latin America.
Yes, unfortunately, sir, we're running out of time for this episode of Cairo Local Time. Thank you so much for shedding light on the tourism sector and how we're developing it so far.
With great pleasure.
Mr. Ihab Wagdy, a tour guide, thank you so much for joining us.
You're more than welcome, ma'am.
This brings us to the end of this episode of Cairo Local Time, but stay tuned for more on Nile TV.